Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Kev's Movie Corner. I am Kev, and this week we are talking about Sullivan's Travels. This movie was released in 1941. A quick snippet from IMDb is Hollywood director John L. Sullivan sets out to experience life as a homeless person in order to gain relevant life experience for his next movie. It is directed by Preston Sturges, stars Joel McCrea and Veronica Lake. This movie is kind of a comedy drama. It's kind of a slapstick type comedy with drama as well. So it starts out with a scene which I immediately thought I had messed up somewheres, or the TV didn't work right, because it starts out with these two guys fighting on top of a train. Okay. I don't know what the movie is at this point. Two guys fighting on top of a train. They fall off the top of the train and splash into the water, and then the end pops up. Full screen says the end. I thought I had messed up. I let it play for a few more seconds, and I realized that that's not what happens. But so that is a movie that Sullivan, who is a young, popular Hollywood director, is trying to get made. He's trying to get the studio to put it out. They want him to keep doing comedies. He doesn't want to because he's tired of kind of what he points out as being, he kind of alludes that he doesn't like them because they're dumb and he doesn't enjoy them. He doesn't enjoy making them. He doesn't like them. He thinks people are dumb for watching them to a certain extent, kind of. So he decides he wants to make an important story about people and how they're dealing with everything that's going on in the world and what they think about the politics of things that are going on. And this is happening, obviously, in the 40s. So in the early 40s or whatever, he's talking about wars going on overseas and and people not having any money to be able to do things and all that kind of stuff. So he decides he's going to dress up like a homeless person and go out and experience being a homeless person. His studio doesn't like this. His bosses don't like this. They argue with him, tell him that he's never, dealt with anything. He's never had adversity or anything like that. And they lie to him, and they end up getting him to. He ends up deciding, okay, well then I'll go out and live on the streets for I don't know how long. He says that he'll be back eventually, maybe a week, maybe a month, maybe a year. His bosses don't like this. They show up at his home as he's getting ready to leave, with a crowd of like 15 people that are going to follow him on a bus. They call it a land yacht, and so they're just following him, like he's trying to hitchhike down the road, and this bus is just following him like 50 feet behind him. He gets into a car, a race car that this little kid is driving down the road, and they speed off, and the bus speeds off after him, and you kind of see the slapstick in this because everybody's being thrown around the bus. The bus is going like 100 miles an hour behind this little race car down these little dirt roads, and it's just a ridiculous little ordeal that happens, but eventually, everybody, he says, they stop, the bus stops, he tells them this is just going to keep happening, why don't, you don't like this, I don't like this, I'll meet you in 2 weeks in Las Vegas. So, they agree, they go to Las Vegas, he goes, to go live. He ends up hitchhiking on a truck, and ends up right by the truck. He falls asleep in the truck and ends up in Hollywood, back in Hollywood, which he doesn't enjoy. He makes the comment that it doesn't matter. Doesn't seem like how hard I try to be out of here. I always end up back in Hollywood. He stops at a diner and meets the girl. This is where Lake's character, he meets Lake's character, Veronica Lake's character. She doesn't actually get a name. She's just called the girl. That's how she's cited in this movie, how she's credited in this movie. She thinks he's a bum. She buys him breakfast. And he learns that she's about to leave because hasn't made it as an actress like she wanted to. They have a little quabbles and things, and he decides to repay her by telling her that he'll borrow a friend's car and take her to wherever she wants to go because he doesn't like the idea of her hitchhiking back home. Well, he goes and takes the car. He goes and takes his car, but he doesn't tell anybody that he's taking it, so it gets reported stolen. Both of them end up getting arrested by the police because the car is reported stolen, and she ends up learning who he actually is, and they end up back at his mansion. And he decides, okay, well, we're gonna go try this again. She says that she wants to go with him, so he reluctantly takes her with him. And they end up getting on a train and going. They get on a train. They end up living in the slums for a little while, and they eat at soup kitchens. They sleep at homeless shelters. They kind of live like this. Eventually, he decides that he's done. He doesn't want to do it anymore. His groups, his PR team says that it's a success. All this kind of stuff. They talk about it. He's now going to make this big ordeal, and this is where it kind of turns a little more into it's kind of been a little bit of a will they won't they love story until now. But he ends up telling Lake's character, the girl, that he's married, even though they're not together, and his wife is having an affair with his business manager. He's married for tax purposes, which ended up costing him more in taxes. So, anyway, he decides to thank the homeless people around his area for the insights that he has gotten from them by going out and handing out $5 bills. As you can imagine, this doesn't go well because he gets one person decides to. Most of them are extremely happy. Everybody's ecstatic. One of them though decides to mug him and steal all of his money. Knocks him out, pulls him into a train car, steals all the money and his shoes, and then as the thief is running away, he gets run over by a train. And a couple days later, or the next day, his team is looking for him. They find a man who has been run over by a train. He's been mutilated. You can't tell who he is, but he's wearing Sullivan's shoes. So they have a funeral for him, say he's died, all this kind of stuff. Meanwhile, Sullivan shows up in the Kansas City-ish area, I believe, because he sees a newspaper later that has Kansas City on it, but ends up in the Midwest on this train. He gets kind of pushed around for being in a rail yard where he's not supposed to be, and he's kind of still loopy from being mugged, being hit on the head. He's been asleep for however long this train ride has been, supposedly, and he hits the yard boss with a rock. The next scene is him still kind of loopy, not really know what's going on. He doesn't know what his name is. He doesn't know what's going on, but he's in court facing charges for hitting this yard boss. And he gets sentenced to 6 years of hard labor. So he goes to a prison camp where he is, he's put in not in a hot box, and he's treated he talks back, so he doesn't get treated well. He kind of gets his privileges taken away and everything else. But eventually, he ends up going with the rest of the group to a movie. They go to a black church in the area, and they watch a movie with the parishioners. And it ends up being a Walt Disney Pluto cartoon, and all the prisoners and all the people in there are everybody's laughing, and Sullivan starts laughing as well, and he wonders what's going on. He asks one of the other prisoners if he's laughing, and they just laugh. They all laugh. It's a bunch of clips of them laughing back to back to back. After that, he comes up with a great idea that he's trying to figure out how to get out of the prison camp, because he says, I'm not supposed to be, people like me don't get charged for little things like this. We don't get these type of things for little things like this. So kind of the hierarchy there, which is, whatever. But he starts yelling and starts claiming in order to get his picture in the newspaper, because he's like, well, how do you get your picture in the newspaper? Well, you die. And he's like, oh, I already did that. You could do something. I don't remember what the other guy says, but he's like, murder somebody and whatever. And he's like, that's a great idea. So he starts yelling around that he's murdered Sullivan, and he's murdered John Sullivan. He's the killer. Nobody knows who killed John Sullivan. It's been in the newspapers. He claims that he's the murderer. He gets his picture put in the paper. They find out that it's him. They bring him back, and they talk about how he wants to. First of all, he gets divorced because his wife is remarried after thinking she was a widow, and even when he died, she made the comment that, well, could he be playing this trick, or is this just a big hoax or whatever? And because him and his wife don't get along, they're not together. It's a loveless marriage that like I said, he was doing for taxes, but they get back together. He gets with the girl, Veronica Lake's character in the movie. You kind of understand that to be one of the things. And his bosses tell him, the studio tells him, okay, well, we'll let you make the movie that you wanted to make, which in the movie he talks about Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, which is going to be a serious movie in his mind. But they say, okay, well, you can make that. We'll let you make whatever you want to make, whatever. And he kind of turns it back on him, says, no, I want to make comedies. I want to make a comedy. He goes back on himself. And there's a quote from this. It's one of the last lines of the movie. He says, there's a lot to said for making people laugh. There's a lot to be said for making people laugh. Did you know that's all some people have? It isn't much, but it's better than nothing in this cockeyed caravan. So he kind of realizes that the comedies that he's been making aren't just for it. He realizes that some people don't want to go to the movies to, well, this is how I saw it anyway. Some people don't want to go to the movies to see what people are dealing with in the world. They want to go to the movies to escape. And that's understandable, and I agree with that to a certain extent. So that was my take on the movie, but I really liked this. It's fun. It's kind of kitschy and kind of dumb at times, but there's like slapstick in it. Him and her kind of go back and forth. It's kind of like, they kind of squabble a little bit, and it's got a little bit of drama in it too, with him working in a labor camp and things like that as well. But I did enjoy this movie. I thought it was fun. It's right at an hour and a half, so it's not a long watch either. It's just kind of interesting. It's a fun story. There is a couple things that that I thought was interesting about this. Apparently, McCrea and Lake. Well, McCrea did not like Lake, and apparently a lot of the people didn't like Lake in this because she was pregnant and didn't tell anybody when it started filming, and she couldn't do some of the things in this. So the costume department had to try to hide that she was pregnant, and they had to get a stand-in to do a lot of the scenes for her. I did think that this was it was not overly popular. I did not see where it got any Academy Award nominations or anything else. It didn't do real well at the box office. It didn't even really make it made back what it cost to make, but it didn't go it only about doubled it made about double what it cost to make. So it didn't do real well. It was inducted as the National Film Registry and the Library of Congress are selected for preservation in 1990 as a classic. It's interesting though. There was a couple things with the chain gang scene that I thought was interesting, and the so the Office of Censorship at the time would not allow them to keep the chain gang scene, or they didn't approve it to be sent overseas because of the chain gang scene, and they had to make sure that there wasn't any sexual innuendo or sexual connotation when Sullivan and the girl are sleeping next to each other in a shelter. They're sleeping on the floor with a bunch of other people, but they said that they couldn't have any sexual notes there. So, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? It was a fictional book that he talks about in the movie. It did end up getting made into a movie in 2000 by the Coen brothers. That one was a comedy, obviously, with George Clooney. If you've seen that, that's a lot of fun. That movie's a lot of fun too. So yeah, this was a lot of fun to watch. I enjoyed this. I think it is something that a lot of people would have fun watching because, like I said, it's kind of a slapstick comedy. It's not super serious, but it's not super stupid either, and it's short. It's an hour and a half long, so I think it's something fun that just about anybody can enjoy watching. I think that's it for this week, though. Next week we are watching The Network from 1976. So if you want to watch that and join me on that episode, go ahead. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment. It helps us grow the podcast channel and all that, YouTube channel and everything. I think I will talk to you guys next week.